Hello BookTube! Welcome to Lizzie Faye Loves Books. I'm Elizabeth and this is going to be my October wrap-up. Well, October was a smaller reading month for me in that my numbers were not as high because if you've been following my channel, you know that I had to make a 10-day trip to Oklahoma to finish cleaning out my childhood home so I could sell it. While I did finish one complete audiobook there and start a couple more, I just didn't have enough time this month to really sit down and do a lot of print reading. So my numbers were not as high, but I got to looking at my stack and I finished a total of 9 things, and 4 of them are over 400 pages, so they would all qualify as big books. So I guess I still need to pat myself on the back because I did do pretty good considering all the other things that I had to do this month. So here are the books that I finished. Now, I have already talked about a few of these because I did a Friday Reads video before I left and then another one after I came back. So I won't really need to tell you too much about those books. Before I left on my trip, I listened to Rush Limbaugh, The Way Things Ought to Be, and I also listened to Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll, and this was a radio theater version, so this was not the whole book, and it was really just more like listening to a play. In fact, I can't even find this on Goodreads, so this is not counting towards my Goodreads number, but it is something that I listened to that is book related. I also finished my reread of The Fellowship of the Ring by J.R.R. Tolkien. I've also already talked about this one, The Valley of Horses by Jean M. Auel. This is the sequel to Clan of the Cave Bear. And on my trip, I listened to the audiobook of The Throne of Fire by Rick Riordan. This is book 2 in the Kane Chronicles trilogy. And I also read Waiting for the Biblioburro by Monica Brown. This was really adorable, and I talked a little bit more about this in my October 28th Friday Reads video. On my October 28th Friday Reads video, I was in the middle of 4 books. Well, I managed to finish 3 of them. I finished Murder in Volume by D.R. Meredith. This was actually pretty good. This is the first book in the Megan Clark mystery series, and this series is about a reading group that is led in part by Megan Clark. She's an assistant librarian. She's also unemployed as a paleopathologist, so she's very smart, but she's currently working in a library just to have a job because the setting is Amarillo, Texas, and where she is, there's just not a lot of call for paleopathologists, and she's been around the world working on mummies and things like that, but at this current time she has come back home and is working as a librarian. So the owner of the used bookstore starts a mystery reading group, and she asked Megan to help facilitate. So through the course of events, one of the snarkier members of the group is murdered on her way home from the mystery group. So of course then all of the rest of the reading group become suspects, including Megan, who's our leader. So she gets the rest of the group together secretly to try to solve this mystery, because after all, they are mystery readers and they know a lot about mysteries from reading so many. So it's really an interesting book. There are a lot of other books mentioned, a lot of authors that are mentioned, and it's I thought it was very entertaining. It took quite a while for the murder to actually happen, and then it wasn't very long before I figured out who the murderer was, but it was okay. I still enjoyed the book. I thought it was very fun how it was a book about other books. When I finished Throne of Fire, I picked up The Death Cure by James Dashner. This is book 3 in the Maze Runner series, and I did enjoy it. I had listened to it before, but I had forgotten all about it, and so it was good to get back into this world, and I did not enjoy it as much as Maze Runner, but it's still not a bad book. I think if you enjoyed Maze Runner and you want to continue the story, then by all means you should go ahead and read Scorch Trials and The Death Cure, because it does wrap everything up and help you have a little more understanding about why they were in the maze in the first place. And I felt that the conclusion was satisfying enough, so I wasn't disappointed with the book. You know, it wasn't my favorite book of the year, but I thought overall it was a pretty good book. Now this one I really did enjoy. This is by Emily Richards, called Wedding Ring. This is about 3 women, actually 4 women, but the main 3 women, there is a grandmother and then her daughter and then her granddaughter. And the daughter and granddaughter have found out that their grandmother has not been doing well. She's been kind of holed up in her house, and they discover when they finally get in her house that she started hoarding. She's not been taking good care of herself, so they basically take the summer off of what they're doing and go and spend time with her and help her get her house cleaned out. And while they're doing that, they discover that she's been doing a lot of quilting, and they just find some amazing quilts. And through working through that and looking at the quilts, they the author weaves in all of their stories, and it's just a really interesting dynamic. I completely enjoyed it. There is another young woman who is pregnant, and she lives down the road. She stops by because she sees one of the quilts hanging out on the porch, and so they are able to interact with her and do some things to help her. So it's just a really good women's fiction story. Each of their marriages are in different states. The grandmother is widowed. She was actually widowed at a very, very young age, and the daughter and the granddaughter are both having issues in their marriage of completely different types of issues. And it's just really an interesting book. I loved how the quilt theme was woven throughout, and I really just enjoyed the story. There are 5 more in the series, but I believe they are about different people. The series is called the Shenandoah Album series, and one of the quilts that is talked about in this book is called the Shenandoah Album quilt. So and the books, I believe, take place in the Shenandoah Mountains. And I just thought this was really good. I think Emily Richards is really known as a romance author, but I wouldn't really classify this as a romance book. There were some romantic issues woven throughout. This is just a really good book about family relationships, and primarily women in this family, and I just thought it was really good. Now, I had one other book that I was still working on that I had to carry over into November, and I'm at this point about halfway finished with it. This is Bot Wars by J.V. Cade, and I'm really enjoying it, but I was not able to finish it in October, so I am finishing it in November. So here's my books that I finished in October, and let me know if you have read any of these and what you thought of them. And that's all I have for this video. Hope you're having a great day. Read a good book, and God bless you.